Welcome to the Geekery podcast, where great power and all that stuff. I'm Void, and I'm here with my co-host Beej.
I can do whatever a spider can.
Nice. Today we're talking about Spider-Man Homecoming.
Woo.
And woo, you give it a little woo.
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 Woo. Spider-Man!
Yeah, there you go. That's better. So if you guys don't know, Spider-Man Homecoming just came out. It's the latest MCU tie-in movie, and it's kind of weird because it sits in the spot where it's like a tie-in to the MCU, but it's also not. It is part of the MCU, but they said that there might be spin-offs which aren't part of the MCU because it's actually owned by Sony. And
yeah, super weird.
It's in this really weird middle ground with Spider-Man. But anyway, this Spider-Man is part of the MCU. I did not see it. This is the first MCU movie since we started this podcast that I did not see in theaters. And life is busy. Life is really busy in the summer when you have kids and they're not in school all the time and stuff is going on. So at some point I knew that I had to stop seeing every Marvel movie just because it was a Marvel movie. And I guess this is the one that it happened with, even though I wasn't really excited for this one.
And it makes me, it makes me sad this is the one that you started that trend with, because it is really good. I feel like it's better that you saw Guardians 2. I feel like this is a much stronger movie because Guardians 2 feels kind of forgettable in a lot of ways to me. As much as I enjoyed it, looking back on it, this one I think has a lot more substance to it. So I hate it that you haven't been able to see this one and probably won't be able to for a while.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is that the trailer gave so much away. Like, I kind of already knew what was going to happen in this movie. Whereas the Guardians trailer gave nothing away, and like the Thor Ragnarok trailer, there's like nothing in there for what's going to happen really. So movies like that are much more interesting to me than going in and already knowing. And I mean, since I already knew the plot, like I'm not avoiding spoilers. Like I don't want to. I want to know what's going on with the conversation, which is why we're doing this episode. I'm not a big stickler for spoilers in general, and the more I read about this one, the more I'm interested in seeing it anyway. Not that I was going to skip it. It's just that, like, I don't know. I want movies to get to the place where there's that rumored service out there that maybe they're going to have same day and date as a theatrical release, that you can pay a premium and like watch it streaming at home. I want that so bad. I mean, I would watch so many more movies right when they came out, and I'm willing to pay a premium for that. Like, I don't care. I can't get to the movie theater that often. It's hard. And I don't know. I would rather watch it at home most of the time. Unless it's Star Wars. Like, Star Wars is an exception. Beyond that, I am perfectly happy watching every other movie that comes out forever into the future in my own home.
In a lot of ways, I'm the same way. And I love the theater. I love going to the theater. And I love the experience. I love the communal watching thing. But this is a movie that I know if I had been able to watch it at home, I would have. Because I honestly didn't want to go to the theater to see it. This weekend, we were having Jennifer and I had a date weekend. We were just kind of doing a staycation kind of thing where we went hiking around where we don't normally go, just having a wonderful weekend of doing whatever we wanted to do. And the idea of going and sitting in a movie theater sounded kind of terrible. And we just wanted to be at home and together. And if it had been available, we so would have watched it at home. But probably as good as it was and as much as I loved it, I probably would have waited until this coming weekend to see it if it hadn't been for us having planned out the podcast to be able to do that this weekend.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to dwell on it too much. There's other movies out right now that I want to see, like Baby Driver. That looks great. I can't justify it most of the time. It has to
exactly.
I have to really, really want to see a movie in theaters to go to the length that I need to actually make it happen. And it didn't. So that's what happened this time. But you tell me, Spider-Man, non-spoilers, because I know there are people who listen that don't want spoilers. Right. Start out with the non-spoilers like normal. Did it feel like Spider-Man?
Yes, it felt like Spider-Man more than any of the movie adaptations have so far. And that's not saying, Tobey Maguire did great. And I liked Andrew Garfield as Peter. But if you are looking for a characterization that is tried and true, well, I guess if you're looking for a characterization that feels like Peter Parker from the comics, this is it.
Okay.
There's not a take on Peter. This just feels like teenage Peter. Like if you were to read the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, this feels like that Peter.
That's really cool. No, that was my main concern. I don't even know if it was a concern, but that was what I was most interested in. Like, did they finally get the tone of Spider-Man correct?
it was almost like you were watching a cartoon, that the way that they put everything together was very comic booky, I guess, and that's a good thing this time. That I've used that in a negative way in other podcasts, but it was very comic booky because it felt like I was reading a Spider-Man comic. It didn't feel out of place. It didn't feel goofy. It never felt like they were satirizing anything or trying too hard. It was just Spider-Man. He was just doing his thing. Peter was going and doing this. That as a Spider-Man fan, this movie is what I wanted, but they hadn't been able to do until now.
Sweet. That's really good to hear. So you give it, what, 2 thumbs up? Big recommendation?
Yeah, definitely 2 thumbs up. I mean, one thing that I should say is that I've heard people complaining that it was too kiddie, and it is definitely aimed at a different demographic than, say, Civil War or Batman versus Superman. If you're into the super heavy, darker comic book movies, this may not be a movie that you like as much as I do, but it is a slightly lighter take on the MCU, kind of like Ant-Man was, where it's fun to watch. Like Guardians, it's just fun to watch. It's more about the characters. You mentioned that it gave away everything in the trailer, and yeah, you know what the basic plot of the movie is going to be. That's okay in my mind, because this isn't a narrative movie. This is about the people in the movie, and that is where it completely excels. The casting in every way is spot on.
That's good too, because like some of my favorite Spider-Man comics were the ones that were about the characters and not really about like the plot or like the overarching, right, you know, like nemesis hero thing that was going on anyway.
Yeah. And that's going on. There is that kind of stuff, and it's compelling. That there are things in the movie that are compelling when it comes to the villain and the nemesis and building that relationship. But that's still the same thing. It's the characters. It's a relationship. And it's not a I'm robbing a bank and so I have to punch you in the face kind of situation like a lot of them are. Like I really thought this movie hit it out of the park in terms of the people in it.
Good.
It was like Thor 2, where I don't care about Thor 2's plot at all. It's kind of terrible. You've told me how that's the worst MCU movie to you, and I like it solely because it's pretty people saying funny things, and I like those pretty people.
Okay, so let's get into spoilers then. Tell me a little bit more about it. What do you like? Okay. What's spoilery? Because like I said, I'm not at all trying to avoid spoilers, and I know a bunch about it already. Well,
this is kind of a segue to spoilers. I love the title. That the more I saw it, and I was like, Spider-Man Homecoming, I wonder really why they named it that. And I went through the entire movie, and I realized that it's so well titled because it's Spider-Man coming back home to Marvel Studios from Sony, that they've had that for so long, that he's coming home back to the nest. And then, you know, it's also that homecoming is a major theme in it, because he's in high school and the girl he's crushing on, Liz, is putting together the homecoming dance. And at one point, this is where it's getting into spoilers, at one point when he gets to the dance, she goes and he has this really characterized moment with the Vulture, and it's he has to bail on her, and he's been bailing on her the whole movie, and it was really the homecoming dance that ruined him and kind of turned him back towards being Spider-Man, and letting him know how he was going to react to other situations. And it was like, Homecoming's a big part of that movie in ways that I didn't expect it to be. So I like the movie. I like the title of the movie, the way that they did it, because I like titles that mean something.
Good. Well, and I guess I'm kind of wondering too, like how's the first half versus the second half? Because it felt like it gave so much of the plot away, but it was hard to tell from the trailers, like, was that the whole movie? Like, did I basically get it? Or is there like an extra like third act that they don't show at all? Like, how was the structure of it?
It was structured exactly like you think it's going to be.
Okay.
But it was it is the Vulture versus Spider-Man. It is him learning to be Spider-Man with this new suit. And there's the subplot of, am I ever going to be an Avenger? And he's trying everything that he can do to impress Tony Stark and Happy, I can't remember his last name, so that he can become an Avenger. He can be this big-time superhero and not just the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And that is the movie. Don't get me wrong. He fights the Vulture. There's all of this. There is the shiny alien technology MacGuffin that they're searching for. There is a glowing purple thing that he has to chase down at one point.
Of course.
It is a Marvel movie in that respect. But a lot of the scenes that you see in the trailer happen in the first quarter of the movie. That you see that all of the stuff that you saw is very early on.
Okay.
And a lot of it is kind of out of context, so that when you see it in the movie, it's like, oh, that's still really funny that I giggled at things that I didn't expect. Even though I'd seen them because of the context that they were put in. So I really liked it. Like I said, it's a character movie. It's about watching these people do this. It's about watching Peter learn that he's a legitimately good person, and that all he wants to do is help people. And that's what it's about. It's not about the fact that the Vulture is trying to sell alien arms to people. It's not that at all.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's happening, don't get me wrong, but that's happening in the background while you're watching Peter be a good person, try to be a good person.
And I guess I'm wondering, like, how do you feel about this Peter Parker? Because I know that you are more partial, and you've told me many times, you're much more of a fan of, like, adult Peter.
He is as great of a Peter Parker as a teenager as we can possibly get, I think. He is exactly what you saw in Civil War. If you liked that, then great, you're going to love Homecoming. If you didn't like Civil War, the portrayal of Spider-Man in Civil War, probably not going to like this because it's more of the same, which I thought was great. You see him at the beginning of the movie, it starts with a video diary of him recording on his iPhone everything that led up to him going and stealing Captain America's shield. That you see him getting called, you see him going to Germany, you see him putting the phone down to record him stealing the shield when he gets called Underoos. You see all that from just shaky camera phone footage. It was really well handled to lead into this, and it just because of that, it transitioned in tone effortlessly. So it is that same keel as the Civil War Spider-Man.
Well, and like, don't you think that they're probably setting up like this with a younger actor so that we can get to adult Peter Parker in it like in an organic way over the next couple years anyway?
I mean, I can't see how that's not their plan. That was one of the things Jennifer and I were talking about when we came out. It's like we looked up how old Tom Holland was, and he's 21 right now, and he's playing a 15-year-old. And he looks like a 15-year-old. And, you know, speaking of that, all the kids in high school were high school kids for the most part, except for his crush, Liz, who is 27 years old, but you kind of totally buy as like this 18-ish, 19-ish year old girl the way they've got her made up. It's like everybody was a small 14-year-old. I mean, they had that. They weren't just, 23-year-old bulked up high school kids. They did a really good job on that as well. But yeah, I think they're definitely going to be having Tom Holland lead the MCU, or at least have the MCU follow him along.
Like, that's what they said was going to happen too. They've heavily implied that after Infinity War Part 2, which they still don't have an official name for that one, but like all of the major contracts are up for like for like Tony Stark and for Captain America and for like Thor and a couple of the other major players. And it sounds like there's going to be a huge shakeup in the MCU, and they'll finally kind of be able to break out of the mold of everything they've done up till now. And the talk is that they want Spider-Man to be the focus, like driving it forward after that. So whether that means he's the leader of the Avengers, or maybe he's just kind of like what Captain America was up till now, where they keep going back to Captain America movies that tie more and more things together. But yeah, I mean, it definitely sounds like, despite it being Sony and now also Marvel, and it's this weird collaboration, like they want it to be the core going forward after Infinity War Part 2, the second one.
And I think that's a good idea. I think that's a good thing, because you always need somebody to play certain kind of archetypal roles within the narrative structure that you're telling. And, Captain America is the heart. He is the conscience. He is the, not necessarily the straight man, because he's the line in the sand. And they've set Peter Parker in this. They've set Spider-Man up to be that same role in the MCU, that if Peter's not going to do it, then maybe you're making the wrong decision. That's the kind of the way that they set it up in Civil War with Captain America. And that's what they're doing with this too, because I mean, you see in the trailer that that they're taking off the training wheels protocol, right? You see that that he's like, oh, there's all these subsystems in here and it's hampered by the training wheels protocol, and so they remove it. And when you get out there, what's interesting about it is that it's so overwhelming that there's so many things. It's basically an Iron Man suit, and there's so many things that it's like, would you like to enter what was it? Would you like to enter advanced combat mode? And he's like, yeah, let's do this. And his eyes narrow down solid black with just red dots, and it just says instant kill mode initiated. And he's like, no instant kills. And that happens about 3 times where his Siri basically takes what he's saying while he's got these protocols disabled, and is like, okay, let's kill them. He's like, no, we're not gonna kill them. No instant kill. And it's just like it's taking the idea that in Civil War, because these superheroes, they kill a lot of people.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of collateral damage. They kill almost wantonly, and Spider-Man makes a point like, no, there's no killing. And you see him fight on the boat that you see him holding together in the trailers, that you see him go after the bad guys. He makes sure that they're not hurt. He checks to make sure they're not dead, and is like, sorry I hit you, you're going to be fine after this, and things like that. It's setting him up to be what Captain America is right now.
Well, and like, I know just because like I've been reading and watching what's going on with it, like I said, not avoiding spoilers. I know that like Miles Morales is heavily implied to be in this universe based on an encounter that there is in the movie. So it seems like they can take Spider-Man, make him a leader, and kind of push him more into that role, and then still have like an upcoming Spider person, you know?
And what's super weird to me is that everybody has said he's heavily implied, but there was one line, and I didn't know about it, that I missed it, because he meets up with the Prowler. He meets up with, I think it's Aaron Davis is his name, I believe, and when it shows his like file, it says Prowler down in the right corner of it. I'm like, cool, the Prowler, one of Spider-Man's people. I love him when they're friends. And because he's kind of, on again, off again bad guy, kind of like Felicia Hardy and the Black Cat, all that. And it mentioned at one point when he was talking with Peter that he was like, and he said something about being from Queens. He was like, yeah, I got a nephew who lives in that neighborhood, who lives around there. And it was just, and apparently Miles Morales is the Prowler's nephew. And that's the nod to him, where you know that he's in the MCU, but it never really says that, oh, there's another guy with spider powers who's going to come around. It's not anywhere near that blatant.
Well, it sounded like there were a lot of Easter eggs, though, in general, right? Like Spider-Man stuff?
There was, and I probably missed a bunch of them, where just initially there was a guy who, I really loved it, where there was a dude wearing a yellow quilted hoodie, and I'm like, cool, that's the Shocker's outfit. And then he punches somebody with an electric fist. I was like, cool, Electric, he's the Shocker. And then later it said he was the Shocker, and then somebody else became the Shocker and then started wearing that same uniform. It was really funny for me on that one. They mentioned just Matt Gargan in passing, and I was like, that's the Scorpion, so he's gonna be in this. And then the after credit scene showed him with a Scorpion tattoo when it got closer up on him, where he's going to be a villain in the next one, I would bet, because he already has a Scorpion tattoo. So that was going on, if you know what's going on. The really snarky girl in the trailers, the one who was like, if we don't stop staring, it's going to get weird. And she's like, too late. Her name is Michelle, and at the very end, she was like, oh, my friends call me MJ. So it's not Mary Jane, but there is an MJ in it.
Oh, that's cool. I like that.
And so I like that they're changing that. That's also probably going to draw a lot of nerd rage.
I'm
because
sure. All that from the same people. You do things like that, it always does. But whatever. It's get over it. It's a different universe. Just deal with it.
That's also the same thing when they called Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character in The Dark Knight Rises Robin at the end. People were losing their minds, like, that's not Robin. And I'm like, well, apparently it is. Where this is MJ now, and that's cool with me. And then there was one point where he was running away from a party, and this isn't even a Spider-Man Easter egg. He was running away from a party, and it showed him running through a residential neighborhood, kind of like in a cartoon where you're jumping over fences, running under clotheslines, that kind of thing. And he swung into a pool, or by a house, I can't remember exactly, but they were watching Ferris Bueller's Day Off that was at the point where he was running through people's backyards doing that, and it had Spider-Man, and I was like, hey, that's a good movie, and just keep going, where it kind of hung a lantern on that they were trying to do that teen movie kind of thing.
Yeah, but again, that's cool that they're getting into other genres. Like, they're doing teen movie now, just like, we talked about they're branching out with Star Wars too, like we got our war movie. They're doing the same thing with the MCU, which I like. I like that about it.
And I think that this is a wonderful thing. And it even has just that feel of, it feels like a teen movie, but it also feels like there's more depth to it than a lot of, than Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Because, it's not my favorite movie in the world. It's more than a one-off on this one, I feel like.
Yeah. And then what about, I know just from talking to you that you had thoughts about, his suit, the Stark version versus when they take it away.
I like his suit. I like his Spider-Man suit. Don't get me wrong. But when they took it away, you see it in the trailer that they take away his spider suit. I thought he opened up as a character more because it let the studio take away special effects. It let the story rely on the person who was in the suit. Really, it was if you're not Spider-Man, you don't deserve the suit. I can't remember how he put it, but it was the truth because you got to see Peter doing things. You got to see him become Spider-Man at this point, where one time he got crushed, like a building fell on him, and he can't move, like he is pinned down, and he can't move, and the Iron Man suit would have been able to get him out of there. And I'm like, Spider-Man can pick that up. And I know Spider-Man can pick that up. And it showed Tom Holland's character here learning how strong he is. And it just felt more like Spider-Man that way, because the Spider-Man that I know and love was the scrappy man on the street, the kid who makes his own stuff, like they were showing him in Civil War taking apart VCRs, where the Spider-Man I love is in a spandex suit, not in Iron Man armor. And I got to see that. I got to see him just making do with what he had, and I loved that part of the movie. I thought it was a better part of the movie than really when he was swinging around in the Iron Man suit, which was also really awesome. Don't get me wrong. I loved that and the stuff that it was doing, and with all the special webs and the gimmicks that it was able to do with all of that. But I still loved him just in his goggles and hoodie going and doing his Spider-Man thing, just being Spider-Man.
Sweet. I think we got to most of my questions about it just through talking, but coming out of that movie and knowing what you know about the rest of the MCU and how Spider-Man fits, we know Spider-Man will be in a bunch of the upcoming MC movies, the big ones where all the heroes are coming together and big things are going to happen, and Infinity War, Infinity Gauntlet, all that kind of stuff. What are your feelings about, I guess, the inevitable Spider-Man 2? Because I'm sure they won't call it Spider-Man 2. They'll call it Spider-Man some other subtitle. But
probably
after Infinity War stuff, they're going to have another one of these. I think Tom Holland is signed on for 4 standalone movies.
Okay.
Not that he'll necessarily do all of them, but there's no way they don't at least do number 2. Are you excited for that? Are you interested in it? Is there anything that you want it to be? What do you think about it?
I am absolutely stoked about Spider-Man 2 because there was not a single, at least that I noticed, at least that I noticed watching it just the one time, I didn't see a single mention of the Osborns. That means that there's not going to be a friggin' Green Goblin.
I do like that. That's good.
I didn't. Also, that reminds me. Hold on. I'll come back to this. The fact that there's no Green Goblin means it's not going to be retreading things like the Amazing Spider-Man movies felt like. It also opened him up to have another friend, his friend Ned, the fat kid, who was awesome, by the way. All he wants when he finds out that Peter is Spider-Man is to be the man in the chair, kind of that Oracle character in Batman, who sits in the chair at a computer surrounded by screens and just wants to help out the hero. And he gets that opportunity in this. And when they turn on the lights while he's doing it, it turns out he's in the high school computer lab in the library, and one of his teachers finds him, and he's like, "What are you doing in here?" And he's like, and in order not to give Peter away, he just very slowly closes out and goes, "Looking at porn?" And it cuts away right then. And it was like, that is what you do. That is the lengths that this guy will go to get himself in trouble that much for looking at X-rated material on school computers to keep his friend from doing this. And I think that's so much better than the relationship that Harry ever had with him in any of the other movies. I just don't like Harry Osborn, and I don't like the Green Goblin as much as some of his other villains. So to see that they're leading up to the Sinister Six with this, because you've got the Scorpion, you've got Shocker, and they're the Vulture. They're leading into having real Spider-Man villains here instead of just the same one or two over and over again.
That's really good. So you're looking forward to it.
I'm definitely looking forward to it. And also, that what I remembered a minute ago is they did not one time, not once, never mention Uncle Ben. Didn't say his name. Didn't show him dying, never said power and responsibility. The only inference that you would get is they mentioned that your aunt's been through a lot. That's it. That is all.
I like that.
I was so happy.
That makes me really happy.
Uncle Ben didn't die. I was so glad that I have no idea what happened to the MCU's Uncle Ben.
Well, that's better. I like that. Like, we don't need to get that again.
Don't.
You know how I feel about origin stories. Like, whatever. Just skip them and get to the next thing, because it's more interesting.
Speaking of getting to the next thing that's more interesting, it is an origin story. It's the Vulture's origin story.
Oh, interesting.
You see from the beginning, right after it cuts away from the video diary, you see the immediate aftermath of the Avengers. You see the Chitauri stuff in New York, and you see the cleanup crews. And Michael Keaton's character is, Adrian Toomes. He is the head of a construction firm that has gotten the contract and the bid for cleaning up a lot of the stuff around Stark Tower. And immediately, after they're doing this, he's talking about what a great gig this is for nobody to mess it up for him. The government comes in, Tony Stark has set up this cleanup division or something that it's called, and basically he gets fired and loses everything. That he's bought trucks, he has gone all in on cleaning this up. It would have made his life doing this, and it got pulled away from him, but they still had a truckload of stuff that they have, of alien stuff that they had brought back to their offices to haul away the day before, and instead of taking it and turning it in like they're supposed to, he basically took it and became an arms dealer. He had a tech guy who was starting to make stuff, who was playing around with it as they had it, and made his Vulture suit out of some of the technology that they were able to glean off of it, and then fashioned it into different kind of weapons, like the ones that you see them robbing the bank with. That came from the Vulture being an arms dealer who was taking this stuff and moving it, turning it into basically handheld weapons. And so you see him doing this, but that sounds very, very stereotypical. That's normal comic book villain stuff. But he mentions at one point that he has a family, that this would ruin his family. And the reason I think they did a great job is because Michael Keaton, he's everybody's dad at this point. You look at him and it's like, you were Batman. You're the dad from Multiplicity. You have always been my movie dad, Michael Keaton. And it's not just because my last name is Keaton either. It's spelled differently. And it's like, Michael Keaton has this kind of feeling about him that he's just somebody who will take care of you. And the entire motivation of the Vulture in this movie is taking care of his family. And so you see later on, like, what really bought us into this movie, what really made us buy in, was when Peter went to the homecoming dance. He was taking this girl Liz, and it turns out that the Vulture is her dad. He opens the door, and it's the Vulture, and that is where the tension just comes and flies in, and it's like, oh my God. And yeah, it could be seen as a stereotypical move to have the Vulture be, the love interest dad, but it felt natural. It really made us go, oh, I didn't see that coming, because it wasn't that kind of movie generally. And it's like, oh, we mentioned his family, they're really well off. And it's like, well, of course they're well off. Her dad's an arms dealer selling alien technology. And see Peter recognize him, but he doesn't recognize Peter. Then as they're in the back of the car going to homecoming, as he's driving his daughter to like this dance, he hears Peter's voice and recognizes him as this little smarmy spider dude who has been giving him trouble lately. And when Peter's going into the dance, when his daughter goes into the dance, when Liz goes in, he comes around, and that's where you see that moment in the trailer where he's like, I will kill you and your family. That moment. And it means so much more in context, because you see not that he's just threatening Spider-Man, he is threatening Peter Parker. That he found out that he's Spider-Man, he is going to threaten him, and he will absolutely follow through, because you've seen him follow through on that earlier in the movie. And it's not just a I'll kill everybody you know kind of thing when you're fighting somebody on top of an airplane. It's he's in a tuxedo in the back of a car taking this girl to homecoming, and his new villain has a gun pointed at him saying, if you don't let me do my thing and let me protect my family and provide for them, I'm going to kill you and your entire family. And it works.
It sounds really good. Like, I want to see this movie. I'm going to see it as soon as, like, it comes out in somewhere that's not in theaters, basically. Unless I can sneak off to a theater, which I might. But
I hope you can, because even though you don't like origin stories, and this is a Vulture origin story, like I said, the post-credit scene, the main one right after the pretty credits, is the Vulture in prison. He gets arrested, he gets taken in, yada yada yada. You know that's gonna happen. And Max Gargan, the Scorpion, comes up to him and is like, "Yo, there's a rumor that you know who Spider-Man is," and he just kind of looks at the Scorpion and goes, do you think that if I knew who Spider-Man was, that he would still be alive right now? And it's like, this guy may not be a total villain. It's like that Magneto thing where there's the Magneto and Professor Xavier friendship and respect there. It's like, this guy knows who Spider-Man is, won't give him up. And yeah, it could be just revenge, but it's like, he saved the Vulture's life twice in this movie, and he saved his daughter's life at one point. He saved Liz's life while she was at an academic decathlon meet in Washington, D.C. during the movie. And so the Vulture has this sense of respect and honor that's like, this guy saved my family like I'm trying to do. I'm not going to kill him and rat him out. And even though I just wanted to sell my arms, that's all I wanted to do was sell these guns. And it made for a way more interesting villain than I expected. And I hope that Michael Keaton is contracted for more. I hope he is in the second one and they put together at least a team to fight Spider-Man of the Sinister Six, whether it's, three of them or whatever, because we already have three villains established in this one, just as four, because there's the Prowler. So, and you see a white-haired girl that might be Felicia Hardy, just a long silver-haired girl at high school.
Oh, cool. Any parting thoughts for Spider-Man?
That I want you to see it.
I will. I'll get to it.
I do really want you to see this because it's very good. That I didn't text you the day of that it was so good because Jennifer and I were having date day. And that is the only reason, is because I was avoiding my phone. But it is amazing. Spider-Man get amazing. It's super good. And like I said, the only thing I didn't like was, it's not adult Peter. I love adult Peter. There are moments when I know that this is an origin story, because in 2 movies from now, when the Vulture said all of that to Peter, instead of being scared and cowering in the back of a car, he would have said something really snarky and thwipped web at him. And it would have been more confident. And I look forward to that confident Peter that we see parts of in this. You see him learning to be that. And I like that. I just love the other one more. So, I mean, that's like saying, I'm eating this delicious ice cream cone and, the only bad thing is that it ends. It's just such a good movie. They did such a good job on this one.
Yeah, there will be more. There will be more.
Yeah, there will be more.
For sure. Cool. Let's dive into the Geeky Offer of the Week. This week, we have Audible, and I'm going to recommend a book I haven't in a while called The Hobbit. Some of you may have heard of this. And
I might have heard of that.
Really.
Is it new?
No. But actually, I listened to it recently because I've been listening to a podcast series that they used to be called Storywonk, and now it's Point North Media. You can Google them. And
right.
I always forget the name of this podcast, the actual podcast, because the guy who does it, Alistair Stevens, does so many podcasts, and he does a different one for like every narrative universe that he touches, or like every series that he covers. So he has Story in Star Wars is one that's really good. But
okay.
And he has like a Harry Potter one. He has a bunch of them. But he has one for The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, and it was basically like a book club of The Hobbit, and now he's partway into Fellowship of the Ring, and he's going to do all of the Lord of the Rings. So it's really good. It might be called There and Back Again, now that I think about it. It's something like that. But The Hobbit is, I don't know. I don't love reading The Hobbit, and I hadn't in a while. So Audible was just a good format to kind of like take the story in again. I talk about some of the recommendations I do are like transformative performances. I can't really say that about The Hobbit, but I do think it's a better way for this particular story than to read it, just because I don't know, I have trouble getting through Tolkien's writing. Just his style never really clicks with me. So this is a good way for me to like revisit The Hobbit, and I might do the same thing for Lord of the Rings because I'm still listening to that weekly podcast. But for now, The Hobbit. Or if you guys want to get any other book, you can get one book on us and help out the podcast at the same time. Go to audibletrial.com/geek2geekcast. And with that, it's time for our weekly geekery, where we share what we've been geeking out about this week. I know Beej has been geeking out about Spider-Man, but besides that, what else is going on?
I canceled my WoW account. I
kind of suspected.
Because I'm playing Final Fantasy again. We'll talk about that in a bit. I did cancel the WoW account, and part of the reason that I didn't keep it going through August like I'd initially planned to see the rest of this current dungeon is because it hit more of the same territory. Because, Broken Isles is the area, and then the Broken Shore is a quest zone that they released, and it's all gray and brown and demony too. And it's the same kind of demony stuff that you've seen forever, and is going into the rest of the world with the demon invasions and all this. And then I get into Tomb of Sargeras, and it's the same aesthetic. I'm fighting demons in a green and purple and gray building, and then I go down a ramp, and I'm fighting Naga in a water basement, in a water cave.
Yeah, it's like you've done all that before. Time for something else.
I've done this.
Yeah.
And then what caused it, I was still like, I'm okay. I can see the rest of this out. I can see the rest of this dungeon. I've been having fun doing this. This is great. I'm having fun with my people. And then they released the next patch. They put pictures up of what the next patch from raid content was going to be, the Timeless Isle style area, the kind of freeform sandbox quest hub that they've got, and it was the exact same thing. It was the homeworld of Argus that once again looked green and gray, and I couldn't take it anymore. I was like, I'm not spending that many hours looking exactly the same, because this is one of my least favorite things, where I know a lot of people got orc overload in Warlords of Draenor, where it's like, please, no more orcs. That's the way I feel about demons right now, where I will go back to this once everything is done, power through it, see everything that came out again, play my mage. I got flying. It's going to be so much better and just fun to play then, but I'm not slogging through the same stuff I've done over and over again right now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, fun. I had fun while it lasted. I don't regret spending the time in there at all. It was great. Still reading Mistborn 3. I love it, but I read at night, so I haven't been able to really power through, partly because my reading time has been taken up with playing Final Fantasy 14.
That's fine. When
I stay up late sometimes.
When you do finish it, just report back. That's the main thing.
I will.
Okay.
I haven't installed Portal 2 yet for the same reason.
Yep. I suspected. Okay, what else?
Yep. But I have, in just a little bit of time on my phone when I'm pooping or doing other things where I'm just around, I reinstalled Final Fantasy 6 and have been playing it a little bit. It was fun. I'm still having a good time. I still hate the interface on Final Fantasy VI on iOS. The others look so much better. I watched part of Capsule J's Final Fantasy V 4-job Fiesta stream, and I realized just how much better the interface on 5 is than 6, and I'm just so sad that it's this weird tab situation where things just it's ugly and it's not intuitive, and I don't like it. But because of that, I also reinstalled Final Fantasy Record Keeper. Have you played it?
Yeah.
It's not good.
No.
It's Fire Emblem Heroes for Final Fantasy
it's not
without
even
any of the depth.
Yeah.
It's just collecting Final Fantasy heroes and hitting bosses. Where I played it, I'm still playing it, logging in once a day a little bit, but I'm like, it's turn-based battles are for that kind of game where you're collecting heroes, putting your own dream team together and going through, bits of bite-sized content. Strategy game is so much more suited for that than turn-based battles, because it's like attack. That's not fun.
No.
And I got Sephiroth, and it's like, cool, Sephiroth! And then I haven't logged on anymore today. That was pretty much it. But it disappoints me because I wanted it to be good, and it was exactly like I remembered it being. But I still got Sephiroth, so there's something. I also watched Glow on Netflix, the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling show that has Allison Brie in it and a few other people, has Mark Maron in it. I said in it twice, and it has Mark Maron in it, and it's really good. It is twice, 3 times as good as I ever expected that show to be, because the trailer looked interesting, and the first episode was pretty good. When we got past that, Jennifer and I just binged all of it at night. I was like, you want to watch Glow? I was like, yeah, let's watch Glow. And then last night there was a documentary on Netflix about Glow, and I'm a wrestling fan. I watched wrestling through college with all of my friends, with WWE, when it transitioned from WWF to WWE. It's like my friends when I was younger loved wrestling. Like I've grown up with professional wrestling being part of my life in some way or another, whether I'm actively a fan right then or not. So I knew what Glow was. I didn't know a lot about it, and because it wasn't something that I watched when I was younger. And Jennifer hates professional wrestling. She just can't get into it, and she doesn't like watching muscled up guys like that. And it's not even she just doesn't like looking at them.
Yeah, no, I don't. I've never gotten into wrestling ever. I think I watched it one time when I was like 10 at a cousin's house, and I was like, really? Yeah. This is fun for you? Okay. And that was my last interaction with it.
You might like Glow because she doesn't like that either, and she wants to go back and watch the Glow wrestling, that the women wrestling, and not because they're wrestling and not because they're women, but because it felt like a Saturday Night Live skit. It felt like watching a Halloween wrestling Saturday Night Live skit in a lot of ways, where it's just goofy, like way goofier than most professional wrestling. And the show was just oddly compelling that I really fell in and love these characters, and I cannot wait for season 2.
Huh, interesting.
Yeah, I haven't seen Castlevania yet. I know it's on there now, where you've told me to watch it, and Glow took our Castlevania time, because Jennifer's like, I wonder if I would like Castlevania. So we may try it soon to be able to see how it is.
But I know that the majority of your week was Final Fantasy 14, because I've seen you playing, and I've been talking to you about it, and I've also been playing. So when I left off last time we talked, I think I was at level 62, and since then I opened up the rest of the zones. I did all of the dungeons. I basically beat Stormblood. I beat Stormblood content with my bard, and then I've now done 3 of the 4 raid encounters that only got patched in last week. Like, they weren't even out right when the expansion released.
Right.
So I'm basically at endgame now, and I'm still doing some of the raiding with like the Free Company and friends and stuff on the bard, and then I'm switching back and I'm working on leveling up like my white mage a little bit and my paladin a little bit, and exploring some of the new leveling things they have, like Palace of the Dead, which is really cool. But you've been playing too, and you just reached endgame like today, right?
Technically yesterday, but today, yeah. I started playing it. I don't think I was playing it when we recorded last, and so I had to power through the very end of A Realm Reborn, the first release, the main game, the entire first expansion, Heavensward, all of the patch content for it, and Stormblood, and I'm through all of that. I hit max level yesterday, and I beat the end story today and did all of the dungeons that came out, the expert roulette dungeons. I did all of those today. And
so you've basically done everything except the end game raid now.
Yes, I've not done the in-game raids that you have. I started working on my Bard because I got Red Mage up, and it was super fun. Leveling a DPS class was a lot better, but I'm having a wonderful time. And I transferred servers, and I played with you for a little bit, and to level up, and with the Belgas crew on Cactuar, and then I ended up transferring back to Leviathan because when we had a cookout for the 4th of July last weekend, I convinced my real life buddies who I started playing with to play again. So I went back to play with them because I said that's the only way I'd go back is to play with them, because that's really the main part of the game for me. Is that's how I spend time with people who don't live around nearby here. And so anymore at least, and so I'm playing with them, and it's been super fun. I'm really loving Final Fantasy 14 right now, and I think you are too.
Yeah, we're probably going to make it the topic next week, and we started doing some show notes for it to see how it would go, and it looks like it might actually be like 2 episodes worth of talking, so we'll probably break it up into some like general Final Fantasy thoughts and maybe Heavensward, and then also follow it up with like Stormblood, because there's so much to talk about. Like, yeah, I still think it's the best MMO on the market at the moment.
I think so now, and we'll get more into that next week when we do that. But yeah, we've never done a full episode on it, and it's not as though we're just talking about content. We want to talk about it kind of like we dove into the entire series, where we want to really look at this game and what makes it so good, and why I'm very glad that I played WoW before going into it.
Yeah, so we'll get into that next week. But yes, we've both been playing that a lot, and we will probably also play a lot between now and next recording. But besides that, outside of that, that was honestly what I did with most of my time in the last week and a half here. There were a couple gaming news things that came out. The SNES Classic was revealed, and it's still not up for pre-order in the US, but oh my god, I want that so bad. When the NES came out, that's what I wanted. I was hoping they would follow it up with this one, and now they are. So I'm definitely going to try to do that.
And I can't remember what all games were listed, but Super Mario RPG is one of them, right?
Yeah, no, it's like basically the best of the best minus Chrono Trigger is what's being released for it. And then they're also releasing Star Fox 2, which never actually came out. That's going to be on it too. Oh,
that's cool. I hadn't read that. That's awesome.
Yeah, Nintendo is legitimately releasing a Super Nintendo game in 2017. Like, you could put that one on a Game of the Year nomination list, and it would be accurate to have it there, because it has never released before this year.
Not even in Japan. That's not even a North America thing. That is a never been released, period.
Yeah, no, it was a game that they had finished, and they were so close to releasing the N64, and like PlayStation was just coming out, that they put a halt. Like, I don't know if you know about the SNES history.
This is all new to me.
Okay, so they had a bunch of 3D games in development with the FX chip on the Super Nintendo, and they killed all of them. There were a bunch. They were announced. They were in development in various stages of production. And Star Fox 2 was one that was done. Like, it was completely done. And they said, no, we're going to focus on the N64. We're not going to do 3D on the Super Nintendo, besides the little bit of like Mode 7 and like FX chip stuff that they had done already.
Yeah.
So it's been sitting there for years now. And like, it's coming out, like it's releasing this year on the Super Nintendo Classic. So I'm really excited for that. The other Nintendo gaming news that I was excited for this week, there are no game overs in Mario Odyssey. And it's like, yeah, it's about time, Mario.
Yeah,
just get rid of game overs. Like, you don't need coins to get 1-ups. Like, it's outdated. Like, yeah, okay, you just start over from whatever area you're in. There's no need to ever have a game over. I thought that was cool. It seems like a natural evolution of the series, but it's also worth mentioning because it's a new thing. As for like stuff I actually did, I have been playing the 4-Job Fiesta a lot, or not a lot, but I have been playing it just because Final Fantasy 14 has been dominating my time. I have my 3rd job. The Fire Crystal is a ranger, and I'm getting very close to the Earth Crystal. So I don't know. After the Earth Crystal, you're kind of near the end of World 1, which is a little bit more than a third of the way through the game. And I haven't put that many hours into it, honestly. Like, if I sat down and dedicated a weekend, like I would finish the 4-job Fiesta, no problem, especially with the classes I already have. Like I know I could power through. So I'll get back to that after some of my hype dies down for 14, but I'm not there yet.
How do you feel about the jobs that you got this year versus the ones that you got last year?
I feel like it's much easier. Like the monk and ranger have been really good. And then I still have time mage, which I don't love the magic for the time mage, but it's a rod breaking class, which do you know how that works in Final Fantasy V?
No, not rod breaking. I can't remember that.
So rod breaking is you can buy like a fire rod, a lightning rod, and a ice rod or winter rod, something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And what you can do is if you have a magic using class, so it has to be some kind of caster basically, or, you know, magic wielder, you can equip the rod, and then if you go into your inventory in the middle of a battle, it's one of those games where you can like switch out the equipped weapon in the middle of a battle. Yeah. Or you can go and you can select your equipped weapon, and instead of attacking with it, you can do like the use action. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Okay. I do. Yeah, I remember this.
So if you do that, you can choose to use it, and it treats it as a consumable, but it will cast the highest level of that spell. So you can do like Ice 3, Fire 3, you know, like Thunder Gaga or whatever the Final Fantasy version is. And you can do that from the first time that you pick up a rod. So all of the magic users are considered rod breakers in the game. And having one of those means that if I ever get stuck on something, I can always go buy some more magical rods and then just bring them to the fight and break them over and over to do super high level magic. Whereas
that is very true.
Yeah, whereas I could do that last year, but I had a black mage, so it made more sense to just spend time getting the black mage's magic up to high levels, and then I could do it consistently. So this is the first year that I've really done much rod breaking to get past things that I was stuck on, but I'm not honestly getting stuck that much. Like monk is really powerful. It's going well. I still have to see what my last job is, but I'm just not really worried about it. Like I know I can beat it with what I have already.
I'm just glad that monk is better in 4 than it is 14, because still when I see monks, I'm just like, oh, you're a monk.
Yeah, no,
I'm sure they're good, but in certain ways, but I'm just like, oh, monks.
Yeah, it's good. And then I watched Silicon Valley season 4. I basically just resubscribed to HBO Now because Game of Thrones is coming out in a week here. So I wanted my subscription up and running again for 2 months, and then I'll cancel it again. But since I had the subscription, I caught up on Last Week Tonight. I caught up on Silicon Valley season 4. If you like Silicon Valley, any of the other seasons, season 4 is good. I think it was better than season 3, but it's one of those subjective things, you know, just kind of how season to season it goes. But I don't really have anything new to say about it outside of like, if you liked it, you'll still like it. If you didn't like it, whatever, skip it. But I did watch Castlevania this week because it just came out on Netflix, and I liked it. I didn't know what I would think going in, but it's interesting. Like, I didn't love it, but I liked it. You know, one of those type of things. So it's interesting. It has short episodes. They're like 20 to 30 minutes each. It's a cartoon, which is the main reason I didn't know if I was going to like it or not. It's kind of brutal and violent at times, and it has some like religious imagery because it's Castlevania. It's Dracula. It's like the church. It's not straight up Christianity, but they're kind of heavily implying, you know. But it had a short total runtime. There were only like 5 episodes. The whole thing took less time to watch than a movie. So I just binged it in one sitting. It was very easy to binge it. And they confirmed after the first day of viewing that they were going to renew it for a second season. So apparently enough people watched it that we're getting season 2. And that was after like one day. So
that's awesome, y'all. Y'all showed up.
Yeah, people showed up. And, you know, Castlevania, like, I've played most of the games. I don't know if I've ever beaten a Castlevania, but I remember it enough from all of my years of gaming that I was like, yeah, I should give it a shot. You never know if a gaming media thing is going to be absolutely horrible or okay or very, very rarely good, outside of, you know, games themselves. So yeah, I liked it. I guess I wish there was a little bit more action in it and a little less talking and character development, but it could just be the nature of it being the first season and setting up like the setting, for lack of a better, you know, way to put that. So it had a little bit of a slower start, but I liked it a lot by the end, especially by the last episode. I was like, yeah, okay, I'm bought in. And then it ended. So, but I don't know. It didn't end in a bad place. It just ended. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll watch it when it comes out again. You know, like I'm happy enough with that. But I think you would like it.
That's how I'm probably going to be with it. It's something I'm hesitant because it looks like anime, and so we'll see. I haven't even seen a trailer or clip of it, so it may not have that anime feel that I don't like.
Because you said that, and then I said, no, it's not anime. And then I stopped and I Googled what is anime, because I don't actually know where that line is between cartoon and anime, because I'm not a cartoon or an anime guy, and I could not figure it out. Besides anime being considered like Japanese animation, there's no real definition of what's a cartoon and what's anime. And apparently in Japan, anything that is a cartoon is considered anime. So Disney cartoons or Disney movies that are animated that we would consider just like an animated Disney movie, in Japan, they would call that a Disney anime. So there are weird lines there that blur, and I don't know what the line is because I'm not a big fan, like I said, of, like either one. So subjectively, right, because I have no objective measure here, I didn't feel like it was anime. It just felt like an animated thing. And
even if it is, there's a chance that I'll like this one, because one of my favorite animes is called Berserk, and and I loved Vampire Hunter D, but I haven't seen it in years. But I do like the fantasy style anime more, and the kind of gothic anime, so like Berserk was. So I think I still might like this one, even if it is, has that anime feel that Voltron did that I just couldn't push past.
Yeah, it does not feel like Voltron. It doesn't feel like any of the animes I've tried to watch. It just feels like an animated show, Cool. But it's definitely that like gothic fantasy setting, which is why I think you would like it. Like, you should definitely try it and see what you think. Give it a couple episodes, or just, you can binge the whole thing in one sitting. It's like, 120-minute runtime, maybe less than that for all the episodes together.
Yeah, I mean, and that's perfectly fine. I thought about doing that. It's like, if it's a movie, I can keep a movie length, I can keep it up in the background while I'm, doing something else and watch it rather than pay full attention to it.
Yeah, and it definitely picks up as you go along, too. Like, the pace increases as you get towards the end of the season, so you could start with it in the background and then watch it more as you get into it, which would be fine. Yeah, I mean, besides that, I should give the Comic Box a shout out, because I know that if you guys want more Spider-Man content, they're doing a review episode this week. Rob is, and I don't know who his guest is, but I'm sure he's talking to somebody about Spider-Man. And then last week, they did like a Spider-Man preview before the movie. So if you want 2 Spider-Man episodes after watching Spider-Man Homecoming, go check out the Comic Box on the network, because it's fantastic.
And I haven't seen it yet, but I know that Rob was doing a Facebook Live video for a review of Spider-Man Homecoming on our Facebook page, on the Geek to Geek Podcast Network Facebook page. So you can go to facebook.com/Geek to Geekcast and check that out and, see him talking about Spider-Man.
Yeah, I think that's about it for the week. Oh, no, wait. You had asked me, did I play Final Fantasy 12, or am I intending to, or what's the deal? Because it just came out.
The new 12 came out like yesterday or today.
Yeah, it's just coming. I don't know. All the review embargoes are up. I'm not sure what the actual release date was. It was probably today, now that you're saying it out loud. That sounds about right. Yeah, because
it's Tuesday, I think it is.
Yeah. I don't know. I might get around to playing it. The thing is, in my mind, I didn't play it that long ago, because my Final Fantasy series playthrough lasted a really long time, and it was part of that, even though I know that was like, it had to have been years ago now. But I played it, and I played a version that I liked because I had found a way to get it onto my computer in a good way without pirating. Like, I found a good emulator that ran it and upscaled it and removed a bunch of the limitations of the PS2, because that game was actually made at a higher res than the PS2 could ever display. There's a lot of weird things going on with that. So if you have a copy of that and you want to play it still, the old version, I know I have a blog post. You'd have to Google it because I don't remember what it's called, but I'm sure if you Google on agreenmushroom.com, you could find the Final Fantasy 12 post where I lay out exactly what I did to configure it on my PC, and I loved playing it that way. It was fantastic. The remaster looked good. It's just that, like, 12 is not one of my favorite ones in the series. And if I'm going to replay Final Fantasy games, I have other ones that would jump up the list instead of this. Even though it's a remaster, even though there's cool new features, I'm not psyched for it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I understand that. I was talking to somebody, I can't remember who it was on Twitter, I'm sorry, who was telling me about your tutorial on setting it up for the emulator on the PC to use the PS2 version. And I do have the PS2 version, so I'm tempted to do that myself and just see, because my old version on the PS2 does not look good on an HDTV. And I don't have a PS4, so I can't play the new version of it. So that's a good idea for people like me, too.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, go check it out. I did find a good way. I don't remember it, and it was weird steps, and that's why I wrote it down, or I gave a link or something. I recorded it so that I could refer other people to it in the future. And
I put a link in there. There'll be a link in the notes to be able to check that out if you're interested.
There you go. Perfect. Next week we'll be back. We will be talking more Final Fantasy 14, and I'm super excited for that. But between now and then, we're going to go play more of that game because it's really good, guys.
It's really good.
If you have, actually, before we get into the normal outro, if you want to send questions about Final Fantasy 14 or our thoughts on it, or if you have like deep questions about the game or even surface level questions because you've never played and you're thinking about getting into it, if you send those to us, we will answer them on the air if you get them to us by next week, for sure. But you can send those to geek2geekcast@gmail.com or our Twitter @geek2geekcast. And you can always find the longer discussion threads, or you could just throw your questions on the discussion thread because I read all of them on the subreddit at reddit.com/r/geek2geekcast.
And, like we were talking about earlier, we're part of a podcast network. So if you're not listening to Geektitude and the Comic Box as well as us, you need to go to geek2geekcast.com and, pick them up, or go to facebook.com/geek2geekcast and check them out there too.
Yeah, I blog at agreenmushroom.com. And hey, this week you have a reason to go there. If you want.
True.
Yeah, we gave you a reason. You can find me at grnmushroom. That's green mushroom without the E's on Twitter.
And I'm on Twitter as @Professor Beej. That's Beej with 2 E's. And I'm online at bjkeeton.com.
We've been Void and Beej with your Geek to Geek podcast. That'll do it That'll do it for this week.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Bye. I'm leaving all that in. I'm not cutting that out.
Yep, sure are.
Comics. Hey everyone, this is Rob, your friendly neighborhood comic geek.
And this is Liam, the languishing, lascivious Liam of Langley.
Wow, that was extremely illiterate of you.
Well, I try.
We are the hosts of The Comic Box, part of the Geek to Geek podcast network.
So join us.
Bop, bop.
Oh, yeah.